Good morning, students, and today's the topic which we are going to discuss is stimulus variation skill. In the previous classes, we have discussed about the micro teaching, the concept of micro teaching, different skills of micro teaching. We have discussed about the reinforcement skill, and we have talked about the introduction skill. Today, the skill that we are going to discuss is the stimulus variation skill. The learning objectives of today's topic are concept of stimulus variation. You will able to know what is the concept of a stimulus variation skill. Objectives. What are the different objectives of stimulus variation skill? Need importance of stimulus variation skill. Steps that has to be followed when we are talking about the stimulus variation skills. Components. What are the different components of stimulus variation skill? And do's and don'ts of stimulus variation skill. Stimulus. Stimulus refers to an agent that is motivating you to perform an act on an activity, action or condition that elicits, escalates, or rose to physiological or psychological action, activity, or responses. Means stimulus is a way that is encouraging you for giving a response. For example, if I instruct a student to just switch on the fans, means I am oscillating rosy and uh, so that the student has to do an action related to it. Now, variation means changing where there has been some change. These stimuli to explain content, and these stimuli help you to explain the content lively and remove the boredom from the classroom teaching, and that will remove the boredom from the classroom teaching that has been using in the teaching learning process. Now, what is stimulus variation? The skill is concerned with the changes or variation in teaching style to avoid boredom. What happens when a teacher is teaching students? Sometimes the students become bored. They do not enjoy the teaching learning process. So, to make the teaching learning process lively and to avoid the boredom, the teacher should use the stimulus variation skill in the class while teaching the teacher students. Now, stimulus refers to an agent, action, or condition that elicits, escalates, or roses to physiological or psychological action, activity, or responses from the learner. Variations deal with the approach of changing different approaches that will be used by the teacher while teaching such stimulus to bring variety, and that will bring variety variation into the classroom teaching and avoid the boredom of the learners. The skill of stimulus variation involves means when we are talking about the skill of stimulus variation, it's involved deliberate change in attention drawing behavior, means how the changes has been done, how changes has been made in such a way that we are able to draw the attention of the learners, means it is helpful for the teacher to draw the attention of the learners in order to secure and sustain student attention, and how to secure and sustain students attention to what is being taught, means it's not only helpful in drawing the attention of the students or the learner, but at the same time it is helpful in sustaining the students attention to what is being taught to them. Now, it is the skill to stimulate the students, increase their active participation, enthusiasm, and spirit of study. Means the stimulus variation skill help the students to increase their active participation. Means they will involve themselves in an active way, and they are not just passive listeners in the teaching learning process, and they will be actively involved in that enthusiasm and spirit of study. It is a way of enhancing children learning by helping them remain attentive. And in that way, we are making the students be attentive, as there will be the changes, as will be there will be the variations, and that will draw the attentions of the learners, and at the same time the teacher will help to sustain the attention of the learners, and that's why they will become attentive in the class. A stimulus situation that changes in different ways is one of the most powerful influencing in maintaining orienting activity by the students. A teacher must develop the skills to attract and hold the attention of students throughout the teaching. Now it is the responsibility of the teacher, and that is what, to develop the skills to attract and hold the attention, means it is the responsibility of the teacher that he or she will able to attract the attention of the students to what he is teaching throughout the teaching, not for a particular period or for a particular specific, but throughout the teaching process. Now, important words. The first one is stimulating, means inspiring. It worked as an inspiration for the students. Variation, deviation, how the changes has to be done. Movement, changing the position. Gesture signals, what type of gestures the teacher is using to explain the students and to gain or to attain the attention of the learners. Focus, center, pattern, prototype, verbal only. Now, the objectives of stimulus variation skill. To enhance the student's capacity of thinking, means it will develop the capacity of thinking. To enhance the active involvement of the students in the teaching, means it will involve the teacher students in an active learning involvement, means they are not just the passively listening what the teacher is saying. To enable the students for understanding the concept, means with the help of the stimulus variation skill, the students will able to understand the concept in a better manner. To enhance liveliness in teaching, means the students will not be bored, and a actively lively atmosphere will be there when the teacher is teaching that concept. To enhance continuous thinking, means the students are continuously involved in the thinking process of student for understanding the different concept. To grab the attention of the students, to draw the attention of the students to a specific subject or a particular concept, that a stimulus variation skill is very useful. To minimize students mental fatigue and boredom, and it minimize students mental fatigue, and they being actively involved in the teaching learning process, and they will not think that they will be bored in that. To learn how to use teaching aids, and they will able to learn the concept of how to use the teaching aids. Now, need and importance. Now, need and importance of the stimulus variation skill. Why the teacher should use stimulus variation skill while teaching the learners. Now, the first one is type of learners. Mainly, there are two types of learner. One visual and second audible. Visual, those who love to learn when the teacher is presenting everything in a visual form to them, means the teacher is writing everything on the board, the students are satisfied with that teaching learning process. Audible, when the teacher dictates and lecture each and everything, then that students are satisfied, and they think that today they have understood the concept in a better manner. As researchers says, man collects knowledge from their sensory organs. Means all the men are collecting the knowledge information from their sensory organs. Different sensory organs are involved in the collection of knowledge and information, and this is all being said by the researchers. Means from the results of different researchers we can see that men receives most of the knowledge by audio visually, and it's up to 85%. Means most of the knowledge that the learner gets or receives is through the use of the audio visual. So while teaching, so at the time of teaching, the teacher has to keep in mind and to use as much sensory organs as she can use. Means the teacher has to enhance the use of sensory organs while imparting or giving the information or knowledge to the students. As much as sensory organs are will be involved in the teaching learning process of the learners, their learning will be better. Rule of fluctuating attention. One more interesting research about the human tendency that is men cannot pay attention continuously on one stimuli more than 5 minutes. Now, what they are saying that the attention span of a human being is not more than 5 minutes, and if we want the attention of the students to be better or more than 5 minutes, then the teacher has to uh, use different approaches, techniques, tricks so that he can attain or sustain the attention level of the students for more than 5 minutes. So teacher has to use some tricks, some approaches to switch students' attention from one place to another, so that the teacher can take the attention of the students from one place to another. It removes boredom from the teaching. If the teacher will use those techniques, those tricks, those approaches, then it will definitely make the class livelihood. The students are actively involved in that, and they will not think that they are being bored today. It sustains students' attention towards the teacher, and that will help the uh, teachers to sustain the attention of the students towards the teaching learning process. Deal with individual differences. As we all know, that two individuals are not same. They are not. They are not like, and there are differences. There are differences on the basis of their individuality, their needs, the way of doing the things, the learning strategies. So, two individuals cannot be same. They are different type of students in the class, like different IQ, EQ, hobbies, interests, and various aspects of personality. These two individuals are not same. There are differences on the basis of their EQ, IQ, hobbies, interests, and various aspects of personality. Various aspects of personality mean some will be ambivert, some will be extrovert, and some will be introvert. So, to make student understand your topic. So, if you want your students to understand the topic easily and actively, so that they can easily understand what you have been taught. Actively means they are actively involved. This skill is very important. The skill of dealing with individual differences is very important. To break down the monotony of the lesson, boredom caused by lack of variety means with the help of the students' variation skills, we can uh, remove the boredom or the monotony of the classes. Students tend to remain interested. They will be uh, interested, listen what the teacher is saying, watch or do something only for a limited period of time. Therefore, teachers need to vary their presentation to keep students focused on the lesson. Now, what they are saying that we have to maintain or to sustain the interest of the learners, and for that, the student has to be actively involved in the teaching learning process. For that, the teacher has to use a variety of way of presenting the information in front of the student so that the student should be focused on the lesson. Now, motivate the students to learn. Variety in itself enhances children's motivation and interest. A class is more interesting and appealing when students can look forward to discussion where the student will participate in a discussion, projects when a teacher will give them the projects to do that, games they are involved in playing that, demonstrations teachers is demonstrating something, role play where they have to play different roles and other strategies can be used by the teachers so that it will motivate the students to learn a concept in a very effective and efficient manner. A monotonous, predictable routine reduces both motivation and retention of them. If the teacher is teaching the students with the same method or the same strategy for a longer period, then the class will become a monotonous. They are not interested in learning and it will reduce the retention of their ideas also. Meet the needs of all learners. Students differ greatly in their ability and aptitude to learn. Means there is a difference among the learner in their ability to learn a concept and their aptitude to learn a basic concept. Individual differences are normal, means it's not a thing that we consider as an abnormal thing and should be expected. It should be expected, celebrated that there are individual differences and exploratory embraced by teachers in an effort to build capacity in learners of multi abilities. Now, interesting fact. Margin of what we know we have learned about. One person through taste means we learn a concept through taste, and that is only through one person. 2% through touch, and we learn a thing or a concept by touching it, and only 2% of that book. 4% through smell, 10% through hearing what we hear, 83% through sight means when we are seeing a thing, object, increase the retention power of students to the involvement of all the senses, and the students' retention can be increased when we involve all these sensory objects, sensory organs. According to Marvin, of what we learn, we retain. Everything what we learn will be retained only. 10% of what we read means 10% of what we read, 20% of what we hear, 30% of what we see, 50% of what we hear and see means we are only able to retain that much information only. 70% of what we say and 90% of what we say and do. Where there is involvement in the teaching learning process, then the retention will be of 90%. Means learning part 2. Topic selection. Well, beginning is half done. If you choose the correct topic for this skill, then you can easily prepare lesson plan. Means selection of the topic is very important. Follow the following instruction for selecting of the topic. Study the sub skills and accordingly select the topic. And these are the sub skills, and accordingly those sub skills we have to select the topic which we are going to teach the students. Now, First language topic poem, dialogue based lesson, story based lesson, writing parts, etc. For science subject, experiments you can ask the students to do experiments related to that topic, laws, rules, states of matter, vaccination, nutritional value, life cycle of plants, human body structure, and classification of plant and elements, etc. History, World War One and Two, culture of different countries, Indian freedom struggle, French Revolution, Industrial Revolution, Age of Renaissance, etc. Geography, geographical regions, political geography, types of rocks, types of soil, earth and planet, solar eclipse, map reading, practical geography, economics or commerce, source of income, economics of at what are the different sources of income when we are talking in the field of commerce, functioning of bank, what are the different functions of a bank, currency, loan calculation of loan installment, what how to calculate the loan and how we have to calculate how much installments will be paid, savings and investing, economic growth, etc. Computer, peripherals of the computer, use of Word, PowerPoint, viruses, use of Excel. What are the different uses of a Word, PowerPoint, and Excel, and what are the concept of viruses? Mathematics, graphs, how to prepare them, statistics, algebraic expressions, indices and substance, ratio and proportion, number and the four operations, percentage, etc. Geometry, geometrical construction, triangles, quartiles, Pythagoras theorem, countries similarity, parameter, area and volume, circles and angles and intersecting lines, etc. Environmental science, environmental issues like pollution, flood, earthquake, disaster management, etc. Biosphere, greenhouse effect, ozone layer depletion, use of fertilizers and pesticides, wildlife protection, gas leak, environmental laws and acts. Value education, spirit of sportsmanship, respecting others, gender equality, responsibility, positive attitude, dignity of labor, and sensitivity. The stimulus variation involved the following steps. The first one is stimulus variation skill to be practiced is explained to the teacher trainee in terms of the purpose and components of the skill with suitable examples. Means uh, the, we have to train the teachers who are taking the training for becoming a teacher in terms of purpose, what is the purpose of stimulus variation and component, what are the different components that are involved in the stimulus variation skills with suitable examples. Step second, the teacher trainer give the demonstration of stimulus variation skill in stimulated conditions of the teacher's training. Means a demo of the lesson plan should be there, that how a stimulus variation skill has to be used. Step 3, the teacher training plans a short lesson plan on the basis of the demonstrated of stimulus skill for his or her presence. Practice means the teacher has to prepare a lesson plan, a short lesson, micro lesson on the stimulus variation skill to demonstrate how that skill will be used by him or her during her practice session. The fourth step, the teacher training, teaches the lesson to a small group of people, means the number of students will not be more than 10. His lesson is supervised by the supervisors and peers, and how he has demonstrated the stimulus variation skill, that will be supervised by the supervisor, the teacher, and the peer group members. Step fifth, on the basis of the observation of lesson, means when that is demonstrated, the other individual, supervisor, peer group members just observing what he is doing. The supervisors give feedback to the teacher training. He will receive the feedback on the basis of its performance. The supervisor reinforces the instance of effective use of the skill and draw attention of the teacher training to the points where he could not do well. He will give the feedback where he or she has to need improvement, and then again he will prepare a lesson plan on the basis of the feedback that he got. Step 6. In the light of the feedback given by the supervisor, the teacher trainee replans the lesson plan. Means on the basis of the feedback, the teacher trainee will again prepare his lesson plan in order to use the skill, in order to use the stimulus variation skill in a more effective manner in the second trial, so that he or she will be able to use the stimulus variation skill in a more effective manner when the second time he is presenting the demonstration of the particular skill. Next step, the revised lesson is taught to the same group of people. Then, after the feedback, he will prepare his lesson plan again, and on the basis of the feedback, when he is demonstrating, he has to demonstrate the lesson plan again to the same group of people. The supervisor observe the reteach lessons. Means again when he is giving the reteach, the reteach will be observed by the supervisor and give re-feedback. And on the basis of the observation, he will again give re-feedback to the particular teacher trainee with convincing arguments and reasons. Step 9. The reteach cycle may be repeated several times till adequate mastery level is achieved. Means that cycle of reteach and re-feedback will continue till the student is able to achieve mastery over that particular concept. Teacher activity. I shall tell you a story. Try to be attentive. That's the teacher's activity. Pupil activity. What is the story? Component of the skill, verbal focusing. The teacher is using the verbal focusing. For what Jhansi is famous for Rani Lakshmi Bai. Means, yes, I shall tell you the story of Rani of Jhansi. It's very interesting and listen carefully. They become very curious to know. That is the pupil activity. The component of the skill which he is using, the verbal focusing. She was born in Kashi on June 6, 1835. Listening carefully, the people are listening carefully. Component of the skill pausing. Do you know she was married to Sri Gangadhar Rao, a ruler of Jhansi in 1842? Listening attentively. Non-verbal cues to show size of child pausing. In Sri Gangadhar Rao died in 1853 and she became the Queen of Jhansi at the small age of 18 years, listening attentively, change in speech pattern and pauses. Through the span of her reign was very short, but she proved herself very efficient and just ruler and great administrator, show the portrait. Attending with amusement means changing the speech pattern, oral visual switching pausing. She fought against the Britishers for the independence of the country in 1858, enthusiastically attentive, oral visual switching, change of speech pattern. The teacher writes bravest on blackboard. She was accepted as the bravest soldier of the battlefield by the English journals, listening with full attention and interesting. The component that was used is pausing. Listen to me. Do you know what was her age at that time? She was simply 22 years, feeling amazed, pausing, verbal focusing. She fought the last battle in Gwalior on June 17, 1858. She had to cut through the enemy ranks but was overtaken by a stream where she died fighting the change in his speech pattern. Felt sorrowful and sent change in speech pattern and gestures, making students attend to instructions. Intensity, a louder sound, a brighter light can capture anyone's attention, means the way we are presenting the information. But continuity of loudness, if the teacher is speaking loudly, and brightness tend to have a quick decreasing effect in attracting attention. Contrast, anything that contrasts with other things in the surrounding environment attracts attention. Movement, a moving object, things attracts attention more in comparison to stationary one. Instructional method, instructional material are powerful to attract and hold students' attention. Teacher personal behavior, teacher enthusiastic, stimulating, energetic, and expressive behavior get more attention than dull and monotonous one. Now, component skills of stimulus variation. Teacher movement, varying movement within the classroom for pedagogic purpose. Example, writing on the board, movement to the student who is responding to some questions, conducting experiments, etc. Teachers' gestures, purposeful movement of the parts of the body of the teachers to communicate certain meaningful ideas to the student. These includes movement of hand and body parts to arrest attention. Means the different gestures will be used by the teacher to make the teaching effective and to make the teaching learning process as enlivening. Change in speech pattern, silence, pause. This is the use of pitch in voice projection to indicate relative importance of information. Means chip pitch of the speech will go up and down, and that will inform the students the relative importance of information. These include variation in volume or ascent of voice to avoid boredom. Pausing, silence by the teacher for a moment can attract student attention and increase their desire to listen. It will attract the attention of the students and increase their desire to what the teacher will say next. Silence can indicate that what has just been said, done is more important or unacceptable. Change in audio-visual sequence. Continuous change in the sequence of using audio-visual aids concentrate the attention of the pupil upon the teacher. Use audio-visual and sometimes audio-visual materials for that. Vary methodology means the teaching methodology should be changed. Various teaching methodology should be used. Example, combining use of demonstration, group work, individual projects, dramatization, and giving students opportunity to read, write, speak, etc. Variation in questioning. Questions should be varied from low to high order questions. Ensure you ask questions at various levels. When students ask questions, do not directly answer the question. Refer the question to other students. Means when you are asking a question, if the student is not able to give the answer to that particular question, don't give the answers by yourself. Ask the students to give the answer. Develop listening skill among the learners. Let the student finish his/her question first so as to give the time for you to prepare for a suitable and right answer. Do not cut off the student's question or explanation. Try to give them time so that they can ask their questions and they can explain that thing in their own words. Focusing used to concrete the attention of the students on some specific points or events. Used when the teacher wants to direct the students' attention to a particular point which they are required to observe. Focusing can be obtained through verbal communication or gestures or both in three ways. Verbal focusing, look here, listen to me. That means that the teacher wants the focus of the students on a particular thing. Note it carefully, you have to write that thing. This is very important, and that through these uh, things, the teacher is attracting the focus of the students. Gesture focusing, pointing towards some objects with fingers, or underlining the important words on the board and highlighting on the projector. With that, the teacher is focusing, and the focus that will be used by the teacher is the gesture focusing. Verbal and gesture focusing combination of both. Varying of non-verbal gestures, teachers should be able to use hand, eye, body, or even clap, stem fit as a way of maintaining pupil interest in the lesson. Means the teacher can use various non-verbal gestures also. Overuse of gesture might end up becoming a habit and then defeat the purpose of being a student. Means the teacher should be clear that how much of that has to be used. Student movement, the teacher can change the focus of attention by involving students in physically doing something like an experiment, handling apparatives, or dramatization. Variation in sensory channel, varying the sense that students are using touch, see, smell, and feel. The introduction of addition sensory mode in a lesson will make the lesson interesting. Oral to visual switching give information to the class using oral or visual medium means the teacher can use both the oral and visual medium to give the information to the students. Essential for the teacher to change medium to sustain student attention and to change from oral to visual help to maintain or to sustain the student's attention. Oral to visual. While explaining points, one show a model oral to visual and after showing the chart again start speaking, that is visual to oral. Oral to oral visual. While speaking, one show objects, charts and model and explain their various parts. It is switching from oral to oral visual. Visual oral visual. The teacher shifts focus from the visual stimulus to verbal oral then to visual. Variation in the interaction style. Interaction style can be used for stimulus, for example, teacher student or student student or student teacher. Means the interaction can be done in any one. Teacher student interaction style. The teacher has a dialogue with the whole class, communicates to the student as a whole, not to individual student. When the teacher is instructing the whole class at a particular time. Teacher student interaction style. The teacher has a dialogue with a certain student, communities, other student as individual. When the teacher is uh, dealing with a particular individual or a specific student. Students interaction style. The teacher is not involved in the student activities, functioning as an observer. He let the student discuss in a group. The role of the teacher is just to guide and facilitate. Planter interaction analysis category FIAC, the teacher category number, activity, talk, indirect influence, accept feeling, accepts and clarify an attitude or the feeling, positive or negative, tone of students in a non-threatening manner. Praises or encourages student action or behavior, jokes that release tension but not at the expenses of another individual. Accepts or use ideas of people, clarify or building or developing ideas suggested by a student and teacher, extension of people, asking question about content to procedure based on teacher ideas while the intent that a student will answer. Lecturing, give facts or opinion about content or procedure, expressing his own ideas, giving his own explanation, or citing an authority other than a pupil, giving directions, commands, or order to which a pupil is expected to comply, criticizing or justifying authority, statements intended to change pupil behavior from non-acceptable to acceptable pattern, babbling someone out, stating why the teacher is doing what he is doing during extreme self-reliance. Pupil talk response, talk by pupil in response to teacher. Teacher initiate the contact. or solicit people's statements or structure the situation. Freedom to express own ideas is limited. People talk initiation, talk by people which they initiate, expressing own ideas, initiating a new topic, freedom to develop opinion and a line of thought, like asking thoughtful questions going beyond the existing structure, silence or confusion, pause, short period of confusion in which communication cannot be understood by the observer. Do's. Managing students' discussion, structure classroom discussion with purposeful questions, manage dialogue in large and small group discussion. By doing this, the teacher can learn where students are in their understanding and provide timely assistance through his her own questions, clarifications, and follow up activity based on what he she has learned. Assistant performance and Holding. Teachers can provide various forms of assistance such as providing a model, demonstrating a process physically and talking aloud about how expert talks on an issue. Teacher can also help by breaking up a task into smaller units. Developing learning communities. Learning communities consist of student to student interaction and the exchange of ideas in social context. Don't to move like pandemic, to come forward and go backward, unnecessary to sit on the table, to touch head or hair, to touch lips with the tongue, to stand on the same place for a longer period, avoid board work repetition of the same activity, to move shoulders, to rotate neck again and again, touch the eye, to move the eyebrows, to play with chalk or to tight the pen. These are the references you can refer for further learning on this particular topic. Now, let us discuss some MCQs. Dash refer to an action that causes to psychological responses. Now, the options are A. Stimulus, B. Variation, C. Stimulus variation, or it's D. Introduction. So, the correct answer is option A, that is stimulus. Second, dash means changing these stimuli to explain content lively and remove the boredom from the classroom teaching. Now the options are A stimulus, B variation, C stimulus variation, or it's D introduction. So the correct answer is option B, that is variation. The skill of dash involves deliberate change in attention drawing behavior of the teacher in order to sustain students' attention to what is being taught. Now the options are A. Introduction, B. Stimulus variation, C. Reinforcement, or it's D. Questioning. So the correct answer is option B, that is stimulus variation. Stimulus variation is a way of enhancing children dash by helping them remain attentive. A. Learning, B. Games, C. Activity, or it's D. School. So the correct answer is option A, that is learning. A dash must develop the skill to attract and hold the attention of students throughout the teaching. A. Teacher, B. Student, C. School, or it's D. Game. So the correct answer is option A, that is teacher. 6. Dash material are powerful to attract and hold students' attention. Options are A. Instructional, B. Learning, C. Teaching, or it's D. Activity. So the correct answer is option A, that is instructional. A lighter sound, a brighter light, can capture anyone's attention, but continuity of loudness and attention tend to have a quick decreasing effect in attracting attention is known as what? Options are A. Intensity, B. Teacher, C. Student, or it's D. Variation. So the correct answer is option A, that is intensity. Dash skill to be practiced is explained to the teacher trainee in terms of the purpose and components of the skill with suitable examples. Now the options are A. Stimulus variation, B. Introduction, C. Reinforcement, and D. Illustration. So the correct answer is option A, that is stimulus variation. In teacher-student interaction style, the teacher has a dialogue with the whole class, not to individual students. Now the options are teacher-student, student-students, Students or the teacher. So the correct answer is teacher student. In dash interaction style, the teacher is not involved in the student activities, functioning as an observer. Student student, teacher student, students teachers. So the correct answer is option A, that is student student. Thank you, student. With this particular narration, you understood the concept of stimulus variation, need and importance, objectives, steps, and the different components of stimulus variation and do's and don'ts of stimulus variation. Thank you, students. Thank you for your patience listening.